I'll be honest, when I first saw this little tablet we're gonna talk about today, the ROG Flow Z13, I thought it was just a gimmick. But here's the thing, after using it for just a couple of weeks, I'm convinced now that gaming tablets could be the future of portable PC gaming. This is Luke with Digital Trends. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about what might be the most interesting PC gaming device of 2022, something that was actually announced back at CES that I was super excited to test out at the time. Now, this won't be a full review necessarily. I want to talk about one very specific aspect of this design that I think is just genius. But if you do want to get into the details, there's a link in the description for my full review over at digitaltrends.com. But either way, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos from us. Let's get into it. So, gaming laptops. We all love them, and in many ways they've become an even more important alternative to building or upgrading a desktop PC these past couple of years. But if there's one frustrating thing that they all have in common, it's that they all run hot. Like internally, many of them struggle to cool their components properly. But just as important, and not talked about nearly as much, they also struggle to keep the outside surface of the laptops cool. The thin and light gaming laptops that have become so popular over these past few years are the worst offenders, and as much as I love the Razer Blade 14, it's the kind of laptop that is just always warm. Obviously, while you're gaming, it can get like downright scalding, and that is just not a comfortable place to put your hands, even if it's just your left hand over the WASD keys. And I swear, I get sweaty palms even just in normal work use with this type of laptop. It's just nasty. And that's where the ROG Flow Z13 comes in, and more specifically, the fact that this is a tablet and not a laptop. Now, when I first heard about this device, it felt a lot like Asus was making something just because they could. You know, we all know those types of products. Who was asking for a Surface Pro with a discrete graphics card inside? I certainly wasn't, and that was even after I reviewed and really liked its predecessor, the Flow X13. That device, if you remember, was another tiny 13-inch gaming laptop with a 360-degree hinge, very similar components inside to this, but in a different form factor. But like I was saying, the ROG Flow Z13 is more than just a fun concept. It has a very specific advantage to offer in the realm of gaming and cooling a device with this much power in it. So here's what it comes down to. Because the Flow Z13 is a tablet, all of the hot components, including the Core i9-12900H and the RTX 3050 Ti, and literally everything else, it's all behind the screen instead of under the keyboard. That does, of course, put some limitations in how much power and performance you can expect to get out of this. Yes, and I was definitely worried about that heading into my testing. But the point is, gaming on the Flow Z13 is so pleasant and comfortable compared to conventional gaming laptops because with one hand on that removable keyboard, it never ever gets even remotely warm. All those hot components are far, far away. And I don't know, maybe that feels like a small thing to you, but after using this thing for weeks, it started to become my favorite little device to use for this reason in particular, especially compared to any number of these overheating gaming laptops out there. Of course, the Flow Z13 also keeps itself cool internally really well too, especially for a device this small. Remember, this is the smallest gaming laptop or gaming 2-in-1 ever attempted, and yet CPU temps never went above 79 degrees Celsius in my testing. And that's not a coincidence. The fact that this is a tablet that is propped up off the table is again a benefit for this device's thermals. Air is able to flow unencumbered through the vents and cycle through the system easier, and this results in one of the coolest and quietest gaming laptops ever made. The trade-off, of course, which I know you're wondering about, is the gaming performance itself, and it's not what you would call amazing. You'll be playing games like Halo Infinite or Fortnite at medium settings to get over 60 frames per second, while heavy games like Cyberpunk or Assassin's Creed Valhalla are a bit more of a challenge. You can still get around 40 FPS at medium settings, it's playable, it's just not always pretty. But you know what? In most games, it's right in line with the ROG X13, and that tells me when done right, you can get similar performance from a tablet design as you can from a clamshell. Now that might have upper limits once you put more performance inside, yes. But if you remember what was really the first implementation of this, the ROG mothership, yeah, that thing from a few years ago, they were able to stuff an RTX 2080 in there once the screen was stretched out to 17 inches and they thickened up the chassis quite a bit. Now, I'm not saying that the ROG mothership was the be-all end-all of large gaming laptop design, not at all. But I could imagine how a device like the Flow Z13 could be grown to fit more amounts of power and performance inside with a similar design. It certainly seems possible, at least. And if you did, again, the heat would be away from the play area. A gaming tablet, no matter the size or performance level, can do things like this with ease that a gaming laptop will always struggle with. It just comes down to the form factor and design, and it's also just one of those things that you have to try and feel and experience for yourself. Now, we could just end the video right here, but there are a few compromises, even beyond performance, that a design like this would have to make. However, they're not the compromises you might assume. One, for example, is not the keyboard itself, which I was skeptical of at first. It's got 1.8 millimeters of travel and feels just like any other ROG keyboard. They did a really nice job with this. The two real compromises I do want to mention, however, are the ports and the battery life. It only has a 56 watt-hour battery inside, and I was only getting around 4 or 5 hours on a single charge and fairly light usage. 7 at the absolute most, and that was just with local video playback. That's really not good, and it's not any better than the massive 17-inch gaming laptops out there with the top-of-the-line graphics inside. The port selection isn't great either. You'll have to rely on one of the two USB-C Thunderbolt ports for display connection and power delivery, and then you have just one USB-A port to connect your mouse or whatever else. It's barely enough to get by, and most gaming laptops will also include HDMI as well as some additional USB-A. But with a tablet, of course, there's just not a lot of room for additional ports. I've also gone this entire video without mentioning the XG Mobile, which is Asus's external GPU enclosure, and that's because it really hasn't been updated this year. Still works great with the Flow Z13 if you've got the extra cash to bundle it in, but it really still only has the mobile RTX 3080 inside and adds quite a lot of money to your purchase. But none of those compromises take away from what this portable gaming tablet does so well. I think there is a future for these types of designs, and I sure hope we see more in the future. But I'm really curious what you think. Is this the type of device that you would buy? Why or why not? Leave me a comment down below, and hey, while you're down there, why not throw us a like? It really helps us out. And as always, thanks for watching.